to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. I'm Josephina Bergston. The focus of this week's special program is Hong Kong. July 1st marked the 17th anniversary of Hong Kong's handover from British colonial governance to Chinese rule. There has been growing anxiety in Hong Kong about the true intentions of the Chinese government. There is palpable fear that Beijing is working directly and indirectly to erode freedoms in Hong Kong guaranteed under the Basic Law, which dictates that Hong Kong's special administrative region is governed under one country, two systems, with a high degree of autonomy. A critical provision under the Basic Law is that of separation of powers and independence of the judiciary. In other words, a functioning rule of law system. In either a stunning miscalculation with regard to timing or in a deliberate provocation, Beijing has issued a white paper asserting authority over Hong Kong, less than a month before the annual July 1st march and just 10 days before the Occupy Central movement's unofficial vote on the process of electing Hong Kong's chief executive in 2017. The democracy activist group Occupy Central has threatened to grind Hong Kong's business district to a halt later this year if the government fails to institute a truly democratic plan for the 2017 election, rather than a fake election that merely offers a choice between candidates chosen by the Beijing government. Provoked by the white paper, a remarkable 800,000 people in Hong Kong voted in Occupy Central's unofficial vote, a much higher number than the organizers had expected. Similarly, the July 1st march turned into the biggest demonstration in a decade, with over 500,000 people braving intense heat and a heavy downpour to voice their desire for real democratic reform. To understand the schism that exists between the aspirations of Hong Kong people and the objectives of the Chinese government, and to ascertain the implications of the white paper, we engaged in a discussion with Hong Kong barrister Y.L. Cheung and solicitor John Joseph Clancy.
The moment I began reading this white paper, two words or two concepts popped up in my mind. Those two words were shackle and value, or fight between shackle and value, and two phrases, rule of law and rule by law. You see, all along, reading this white paper, I have not seen in any particular paragraph any significant description of the value of the rule of law. Rather, it talks about shackle, power, or sovereignty. Who is the boss and who has the last say? Okay, this is a propaganda, if I may, but I mean, a better way to put it is that this is a declaration of power. And now I don't know how we should view this piece of document. Do we treat it as a piece of legal document, or do we treat it as a political statement, a political position paper, or what? I don't know, but it's up for interpretation. But I think a better way to understand it, it's a declaration of the central government's understanding of power over Hong Kong under the code of the basic law.
I think that, in fact, this cannot be a legal document.
It cannot be.
It's a political statement by the authorities in Beijing, by the State Council specifically, and I think the reason why so many lawyers came out on the march was because of their concern over a number of issues. One is that they're saying things, for example, that the majority of the people in administration had to be patriotic, and they included the judiciary in the administrative aspect of the government.
Yeah.
There's no idea of separation of powers. So that goes with your point about the rule of law. Secondly, I don't think they have clearly reflected on the, even though they refer to it often in the first part of the document, they don't really understand how the basic law gives certain protections to Hong Kong, and that the basic law puts limits on what the central government can do in relation to Hong Kong, as long as the basic law is in existence.
As I understand it, Hong Kong is yes, Hong Kong is part of China, it's under the sovereignty of China, but the Constitution provides that Hong Kong is a special administrative region. Now, let me point out one part which worries me. Now, in somewhere between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, it says this, which in my view is a misinterpretation. It says that in Hong Kong, under the basic law, the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region will be vested with legislative independent judicial powers, including that of final adjudication. The law, decrees, and regulations currently in force in Hong Kong will remain basically unchanged. Now, guess what is missing here? It is executive power. It's not there. Now, because under the basic law, it says that will be vested with executive power, legislative, and independent judicial power. Yeah. Now, that part is missing here. Now, rather, it continue to say that the motherland retains, according to them, overall jurisdiction. In other words, the executive power vested in Hong Kong, in the Hong Kong government, is now subject to the overall jurisdiction. Now, in my view, it is an amendment of the basic law.
Well, I think, well, if we agree that it's not a legal document, I think we would say it's an attempt at looking towards a possible interpretation of the basic law. As we know that only the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress can interpret the basic law.
Correct.
And that goes through a formal procedure of either being done starting by the Hong Kong courts or by the State Council. And I think the one concern among the Hong Kong people would be that, is this an indication of something they intend to do? Do they intend to amend the basic law or reinterpret the basic law to reflect what is in this document?
It is a reinterpretation or even an amendment. Now, because in this piece of document, it says about the central government retains the powers.
Yes.
But that's not what the basic law says. Now, I'm referring Article 2 of the basic law.
Right.
Now, it says this: the National People's Congress authorizes the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region to exercise a high degree of autonomy and enjoy executive, legislative, and independent judicial power, including that of final adjudication, in accordance with the provisions of this law. Now, here, in this white paper, it hardly mentions the fact that, in fact, this high degree of autonomy is authorized by the National People's Congress. It says that you are being given the power by the central government.
Yes.
Now, I think this is a shift, not a shift, this is an amendment, and it's an alteration of the original purpose of the original provisions of the law. And as I said, it deleted actually executive power under Article 2. Now this is worrying.
I agree well. But related to this is the State Council now, being a very high level body within the Central People's Government. Some people see it as attempting to interfere in some way in the current situation of Hong Kong. If you can go to Article 22 and refer to that, where especially the first paragraph of Article 22.
Yeah. No department of the Central People's Government and no province, autonomous region, or municipality directly under the central government may interfere in the affairs which the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region administers on its own in accordance with this law.
Yes. So in other words, that the Hong Kong government should be administering this. The Hong Kong government has the role to say what is happening in this. But I think we go on to again, the main concern of most of the lawyers coming out on the march was the so-called demand of the patriotism among government officials, particularly of the judges, to be patriots. And that starts off in Section 5.
Section 5, which is near the final chapter.
Yes, that's the final chapter. And then it's number 3, subparagraph 3 in that. It says that the Hong Kong people who govern Hong Kong should, above all, be patriotic. And to my knowledge, there's nothing in the basic law that requires, nor in any Hong Kong laws, that require people in the government or the judges to be patriotic.
Well, as I said earlier, I mean, patriotism is not something that I can find in any of the legal literature in the common law in the past several centuries. I've never seen that. Maybe I stand to be corrected. Question is, patriotism has no legal definition. It's not capable of legally defined, and it's only a political concept, and we can never define it. And in fact, a serious question is, who is a patriot? Is Liu Xiaobo patriot? I think he's definitely a patriot. He's now in jail. So there's no definition. But of course, in the current context of Hong Kong, we know that patriot means those who follow Beijing, follow the will of Beijing.
And that will is changing, as we know.
It's changing most of the time. It's changing.
And so you could be considered a patriot by one group, but 10 years later, another group is calling policies you might not be considered.
I mean, the reality, of course, is that we have, looking at the members of the judiciary of Hong Kong, I can count at least 8 to 9 nationalities with 6 to 7 ethnicities. And so which countries are they expected to love?
All the judges and all government officials and most people in Hong Kong want to abide by the law, both by the basic law and by all the laws that are relevant in Hong Kong, as well as those laws of China which are applicable under the basic law to Hong Kong. I think we have no doubt about that. And to that extent, people want to follow the rule of law. And I think this is a basic expectation in Hong Kong which seems to be different than the expectation which is articulated in this paper. Is patriotism versus following the rule of law. Would you agree with that?
I certainly agree with that. I mean, the role of a judge is to uphold justice.
Yes.
Rather than uphold this patriotic sentiments. And I think a point has been made saying that if someone sues the government on matter of huge public concern, and should the judge administer the law using love the country concept, or in strict compliance with the law?
And I think we have a situation now where if judges are expected to be patriotic, some would say they're expected then to follow the lead of the government and to protect what the government wants to do. Whereas we know the Hong Kong approach, the common law approach, and the tradition in Hong Kong is for the judiciary to be above the administration and to be guided only by the laws and the basic law of Hong Kong.
Correct, yeah, good. All sorts of adverse consequences will follow if patriotism or state interests must get into the way of judicial consideration. That will create a lot of problems, and it would certainly change, the entire legal culture of Hong Kong.
Yes, I agree with you, Wael. And I think just to further move on from that point and to build on it, we know now currently there's a lot of corruption being revealed at the highest levels, both among government officials and also among companies. And talking about huge amounts of money. And if that, Hong Kong has a great reputation now for fighting against corruption, and we don't want to see that corruption seeping into Hong Kong.
I mean, if patriotism is a guiding principle, one of the guiding principles, then we are in deep trouble. I mean, it's the beginning of the end of our judicial independence. Now, what triggered the publication of this white paper? Well, they said that this white paper began to be drafted last year. But question is, why choose this particular point of time to publish it? Now, of course, everyone knows that this is a critical moment when the debate over the political reform has been underway, and it reached almost a breaking point. And they want you to come out and then to conclusively make a declaration that the central government has the final say over the political reform. Now, the trouble is that when this SAR government is now in deep trouble, having to handle the conflict in this community. Why pour oil on the flame at this time? Do they seriously believe that by putting in this white paper, it will settle the argument? Now, this is something I can't understand.
That is all for this week's Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. For more information, log on to www.humanrights.asia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.